Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of you for being here. A special welcome to Mr. Harrison, my constituent, and Mr. Mahmoud, my newest corporate citizen. Great to have you all here. I'm going to start out by letting everyone know I was on the Public Service Commission in North Dakota for nearly 10 years. I carried the pipeline portfolio. I cited the original Keystone Pipeline through North Dakota, through 600 landowners' land, 9 counties, and they're very grateful, those rural counties, for that property tax relief that's offered. Before I run out of time, I'll tell you that my intention going forward as I get to questions will be to dig in a little bit, Mr. Harrison and Mr. Mahmoud, on the consultation process, both as it's happened in this case and probably as important as anything, Mr. Harrison, going forward, if in fact we can improve some of those things. But I'm also going to offer into the record some very specific documents that tackle it, including Judge Boasberg's ruling from last fall, Colonel Henderson's memo of record on December 3rd, one day prior to the Acting Secretary of the Army for Civil Works changing that memo, or at least the conclusions of that memo. So with time running out, I'll yield back, and those are the areas of exploration I want to go down. As I said, I want to dig into the consultation issue because I think it's important. And I'm going to start by reading from a, important to note, December 3rd, 2016 memorandum of record from the Department of the Army, Corps of Engineers, Omaha District. December 3rd is important because it was on December 4th that the Acting Secretary of the Army called me to tell me I've changed my mind. Okay, so December 3rd, this was the memorandum. I'm going to start at the end. It says, the Corps of Engineers through the Department of the Army is required by statute to notify Congress when an application is received and when the Corps is going to grant an easement for a pipeline that is greater than 24 inches in diameter. The Army notified Congress of the application on September 13th of 2015, and in accordance with this memorandum, I recommend the Army notify Congress the Corps intends to grant the attached easement to Dakota Access, and ends by saying, after notification to Congress, the Omaha District intends to execute and issue the easement to Dakota Access. December 3rd, 2016. I'm going to highlight a couple more points in this memo, about halfway through. Corps policy is that it will coordinate and consult with federally recognized Native American tribes when reservation lands are involved. The proposed DAPL crossing at Lake Oahe is not on reservation lands. Therefore, by policy, there is no requirement to coordinate with any federally recognized tribe. However, the Corps reached out to the Standing Rock Sioux tribe to coordinate and consult on the DAPL project, as established in the analysis set forth in the final environmental assessment. That's this document, Mr. Chairman. The Corps attempted to engage in meaningful discussions with the Standing Rock Sioux tribe on numerous occasions about the nature of the project, cultural resources, and the Lake Oahe crossing beginning in October of 2014 and continuing through March of 2016. Mr. Chairman, I would respectfully request that both the environmental assessment and this memorandum be entered into the record.
Without objection.
I also wanted to then turn to a decision by a D.C. District Court, U.S. Judge James Boasberg for the United States District of Columbia, appointed by President Barack Obama, for what it's worth. I'm going to skip several references to the consultation process that he references, but I'm going to jump to page 48 of this 58-page order. Plaintiff's last point on the merits is that the Corps, this is important because Mr. Mahmoud referenced the importance of a government-to-government responsibility here. The Corps failed to offer it a reasonable opportunity to participate in the Section 106 process as to the narrow scope of the construction activity that the Corps did consider to be an effect of the permitted waterway activities. And then he goes on to talk about the process. He writes, the Corps has documented dozens of attempts to engage Standing Rock in consultations to identify historical resources at Lake Oahe and other PCN crossing. To the reader's relief, and he's right, the Corps need not repeat them here. Suffice it to say that the tribe largely refused to engage in consultations. It chose instead to hold out for more. And then he writes, in fact, on this record, it appears the Corps exceeded its National Historic Preservation Act obligations at many of the sites. I'm going to skip several other references. I'll read this one on page 55, the record contains abundant evidence that the Corps also repeatedly sought other input on known cultural sites at these locations, and in many cases, other tribes conducted site visits to search for any resources likely to be affected. And on he states, but I think it's really important to highlight that he actually references here that, in fact, in this record, it appears the Corps exceeded its NHPA requirements. In conclusion, he writes, as it has previously mentioned, this court does not lightly countenance any depredation of lands that hold significance to the Standing Rock Sioux. Aware of the indignities visited upon the tribe over the last centuries, the court scrutinizes the permitting process here with particular care. Having done so, the court must nonetheless conclude the tribe has not demonstrated that an injunction is warranted here. I'll ask questions in my next opportunity. Thank you, Mr. Bouchon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I would then ask for unanimous consent to enter into the record Judge Boasberg's ruling.
Without objection.
All right, thank you. I do want to get into this consultation process a bit. One of the things that we heard that I want to dig into, Mr. Mahmoud, is that Mr. Harrison in his testimony references consultation, meaningful consultation, government to government. These are all things I think we need to be talking about, especially going forward. I don't think you can change in midstream. But he also references something that I think is relevant to in this entire hearing, and he references the need for consent. Now, consultation is one thing. Consent means something completely different. Could you tell me as a developer, what would it mean if every development of any type required the consent of tribal entities on private property outside of a reservation? How would that impact development going forward?
Well, thank you for the question. The consent is something that we, from a development standpoint, would probably not have we would not agree to that from a standpoint of the process already exists today, where the consultation under the federal laws is intact, where if the tribes, no matter what tribe and what state, would engage in that consultation and really engage in meaningful consultation, then I believe that their voices would be more heard, and that I believe that their questions could be answered, and then I believe that we would have a more robust process. So I don't believe consent is the answer. I believe meaningful engagement is the answer under the current laws as they stand today.
Thank you for that. Mr. Harrison, I want to ask you, because you've referenced, and I think this is an important point, you've referenced treaty issues. I think you acknowledge that this DAPL does not cross reservation land. Is that correct?
The reservation as it stands today, yes.
Correct. And the big hole that you referenced in the previous map really wasn't treaty land where there was a hole, because clearly the two pipelines that are in the same corridor as DAPL are on the land that's in dispute right now. So you referenced treaty. Tell me about which treaty you're referencing, and maybe give us I don't know if 30 seconds is enough. You're a good educator, but I don't know how much time you need. Just tell us about that treaty and what's at stake here.
Okay, the treaty that we reference is the 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty. And that's the larger part of 4 to 5 states. Basically the western corner, the southwest corner of North Dakota, large part of South Dakota, probably half of South Dakota, I should say, parts of Montana and Wyoming as well. And that's the treaty land that we reference. So
since we're on that, then what can you tell me about the Laramie Treaty of 1868, which is obviously after 1851, because that's on your website, you probably know that. And that, I believe, that in that treaty, the tribe gives up some of its authority, if you will, over these other treaty lands. Can you sort of clarify that for us a little bit?
I'll clarify this, that the tribe has never given up anything. It was taken. And that's a big point of contention on this.
So what's your recourse then with regard to the Treaty of 1868, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's sort of where we land on some of what's in contention, because clearly, again, it's not on the reservation.
I guess I would disagree a little bit on the fact that that's not where we land. We land on the fact that we do have a government-to-government relationship. It is very clear that this process is not only flawed, but it is not in the tribe's favor at all. And whether meaningful consultation is had, the big question is it listened to? We can object till we're blue in the face, and if that pipeline or any other project, whether it affects us or townspeople like Ms. Khan here, still goes in and says, we noted, that's the problem we have. We do not approve of the check-in-the-box attitude of it. We reached out to you, check. We oppose that.
Yeah, but except
we want consultation. We want meaningful dialogue.
But Judge Boasberg claims that there were dozens of attempts at meaningful consultation.
Judge Boasberg also scrutinizes the process and acknowledges that there's been decades, if not centuries, of problems with this.
Well, and I think that's the problem. We aren't going to litigate the history in this one project, but that's why I want to clarify things going forward so that perhaps we can do better going forward. And I yield. Again, thanks to all of you for being here. Mr. Harrison, special thanks and welcome to you. It's hard to respond to that kind of raging nonsense, but I do have to say a couple of things. First of all, you have to, if you're invited into meaningful consultation but don't show up, it's not the person that invited you into the consultation that there wasn't meaningful consultation. You have to show up when you're invited and at least respond to the request. I want to get to another thing that Mr. Ruiz kept saying. There are many fake news stories related to this. But perhaps one of the most egregious is this notion that there was once a route through north of Bismarck that was denied by all the white people in Bismarck, and therefore they had to move it down upstream from the reservation. That's just not true. This is blatantly not true. I've cited many pipelines, and this route was chosen because it is the most direct, because it's an existing corridor that the tribe, by the way, did not oppose 35 years ago when two other pipelines and a transmission line went across it. So we just got to get back to reality. There is a Tesoro refinery on the west side of the Missouri River in Mandan, North Dakota, that employs many union workers. We're very proud of that refinery. That refined product goes under the Missouri River, right through Bismarck, on to Fargo, North Dakota. Nobody ever complains about it. We're happy to have it. There's a pipeline two houses down from mine. I'm glad to have it there. I'm grateful for the warmth it brings. I want, though, to speak in my final moments, and maybe with you, Mr. O'Sullivan. One of my dearest friends in this body is David Scott, a Democratic member of the Congressional Black Caucus from Atlanta, Georgia, who might be organized labor's biggest friend in the Congress. He and I worked together on the Keystone Pipeline. We've worked together on several other energy projects. We have introduced this year legislation similar to what he wanted in the Keystone Pipeline to encourage the unions, encourage the companies, encourage the government in their process of utilizing labor, obviously training, apprenticeship programs, to put a special emphasis on a social problem, and that is jobs for young black men. I would just love to hear more about how your union and how your membership reaches out to our minority community to provide. Okay, call me, call me biased, I suppose, for wanting to give a hand up, a leg up to certain populations that I think need it, frankly, and that have earned it. But help me understand how we can maybe do more with our minority population in identifying opportunities.
Well, Congressman, I can tell you what we do in the Labor's International, and that is that when we have opportunities like we do with ETP and other pipeline owners and users, and a lot of times because work is good in the energy sector, all right, that we have to recruit young men and women into our organization, train them, and put them on projects like Dakota Access Pipeline. We work with faith-based groups. We work with community groups. We work with local high schools, as we've talked a number of times today, about those that aren't ready to go to college or want an alternative career. So our commitment to diversity and trying to do as much local hire as we possibly can is second to none. There is golden opportunities to work with all people of color, faith-based groups, community groups, even community colleges to recruit the workforce of tomorrow.
So Mr. Harrison raised a very important point about what's in it for us, so to speak. Those are my words, not yours. You're more eloquent. But related to none of the workers are ours. Could we try, they have wonderful community colleges. Sitting Bull is a great college down in Standing Rock. United Tribes Technical College in Bismarck has worked with the industry to identify some skills that they could train. Let's commit at least to that, to providing more opportunities to provide jobs that I think could cure a lot of the social challenges as well as the relationship challenges that we seem to be facing today. Mr. Mahmoud, how does that sound for a plan going forward?
We absolutely support that plan. We would love to increase diversity in our workplace as well as on the construction side.
With that, my last 10 seconds, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Again, thanks to all of you. Special thanks and welcome to Mr. Harrison and Mr. Mahmoud.
Congressman, I could say that along with faith-based groups and the other groups, we have worked with Native American tribes, not only in the U.S., but in Canada as well.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.